part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane,
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright, and you're listening to the Krypton Report.
Welcome to the Krypton Report. I am your host, Tyler, the Superman of Blue, the Man of Tomorrow. And with me today is always the better half of this dynamic duo of power, Mr. James Cole, the Superman of Red, the Man of Steel.
The Man of Steel. How's it going, Tyler?
It's going well, man. It's going well. Zidcaster threw me off today when I opened it up here. The website got an update or something, like it's all dark mode and things are in different places. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, my browser wouldn't even load up. I don't know what was going on with it, but it took like 10 minutes to load up.
Dang it. What the heck, browsers? But hey, we're here to talk about something unique, okay? Inspired by our most recent chats with our good friend, Mr. Nate McKenzie over at Superman the Animated Podcast, we decided to go backwards. And we found this little movie that, like, nobody talks about. And I think maybe part of it is it's different. It came out before, right as I was starting Krypton Report. I think it came out right as I was still the Last Daughter podcast before we kind of reshift some focus. And it just kind of fell in the cracks, I believe. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. And it was before you and I podcast together for sure.
Yes.
And I feel like it's a shame. But we are going to be talking about the 2015 Bruce Timm produced, created, story by whatever, film Justice League Gods and Monsters. Now,
very, very like closed off Elseworld story.
In my head canon, this is in the Timmverse, but on another Earth.
I mean, it seems that way, you know, the art style, the similarities in a lot of ways.
Now, for anyone who's not familiar with this film, it is available right now to stream on HBO Max. If you haven't seen it or you never want to see it, you can listen to this podcast. If you have seen it, listen to this podcast. If you haven't seen it, I highly encourage you to go watch it. Now, we're going to do this a little different. We're going to talk spoiler free, and then we'll go into spoilers. Now, a little quick synopsis is the film is an alternate Earth where Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman, the Trinity, which I think is interesting, first of all, is that the film is called Justice League, and they're called the Justice League, but it's only the Trinity, are not the same characters as they are used to be. Wonder Woman is actually Becca, Highfather's granddaughter from New Genesis. Superman is actually the son of Lara, Lord Vaughn, and Zod. And Batman is actually Kirk Langstrom, Man-Bat, in a more vampiric role. And there's no mention of on this Earth or this planet of the other three counterparts. So that's the first big like reimagining of what this universe is. And it's a story about them. This is an interesting take. And if you are interested as well, Machinima, which I don't even think is around anymore. It was a digital website stream on YouTube. I just remember being a big deal because they were doing the Mortal Kombat series on Machinima. And I feel like all that kind of stuff is gone now that everybody has their own streamers. Right. They don't make...
They used to promote like the Bat and the Sun when they first started coming out with like their stuff and their superpower beatdowns and everything.
Yeah. Machinima made what they call the first season of a Justice League Gods and Monsters, which are 3 short episodes that feature just one of the Trinity. And in my research, I guess there was a season 2. I don't know if it was ever produced and shelved, or they just shelved it and never finished it. I don't know. But they had planned to do a season 2. So that's a little background.
I would have watched it.
I would have too. So
Because,
spoiler
as you say, highly recommend. Like, I mean, high level thoughts. Yeah, highly recommend.
Okay, I'm just going to throw this out here. I've been sitting here waiting for you for about 20 minutes, and I did not realize that our kitten came downstairs from the kids' room and curled up next to me on the couch. As I turned to grab my notes, there it is. So, spoiler free. James, go ahead. Your thoughts, feelings, and any history with the film for Justice League, Gods and Monsters.
I remember it coming. I remember around the time it coming out, and I was very interested in, and especially at the time, I was really interested in a lot of Elseworld stuff. We're all so familiar with the mainline continuity, so Elseworlds was just kind of really big at that point, in at least for me, reading and stuff. And so I was excited that it was coming out. The art style, reminded me of the Timverse. He was producing it. I followed it. I was anticipating it, and right before the release, I think it was before the release, is when they came out with those 3 shorts to kind of introduce you to each of the characters, the Trinity.
Yeah.
And just give you a little 4 or 5 minute short for each one. And those were awesome.
Yeah, we're going to talk about those.
Especially 2 of them. And then the movie came out, and just the way that it flipped all the characters. I mean, we're going to get into it, but like the opening, the backstories for the other characters, the way that some people were used in this story. It was just, I really enjoyed it when it came out, and it's been a couple of years since I've watched it, so it was kind of fuzzy, and going back and watching it again, I was like, this is awesome. Like, so, it's one that needs to come around, that people need to talk a little bit more about.
I agree, and I even reached out to my friend Anthony in Digging for Kryptonite, because he just did a series that was all about like alternative versions of Superman and the character. And I asked him if he'd ever watched, and he said no. I said, I think this is one you should take a look at, just for enjoyment. My history with the film is it did come out. It was one I did not buy. I rented it. And at that time I was buying all of them, and I don't really remember why I didn't buy it. I think I was just not sure. This is 2015, the year of Solomon's birth, and a lot was going on. But I did eventually buy it later because I found it at Target like for $5 or something, and I bought it because I buy them all. And I remember watching it, and I'm pretty sure this was it would have been after Solomon was born. And I remember watching it and thinking like, wow, this is really good. I like this. But I never went back to it and watched it again. I don't know why I didn't. I have some speculation, maybe because, they're not exactly the characters that we like or know. They're different. But watching it again now, I'm like, I really like this. And I would have liked to see more of this world. So for anyone, go check it out. We are now going to get into spoilers and the discussion. So this is the point at 9 minutes. All right, if you're still here, here we go. First thing we're going to talk about, Big. We're going to go ahead and knock these out. Big is the Wonder Woman / Becca short. James, I'll let you go first.
I mean, this one was the somewhat least interesting of the three.
It depends if least interesting mean that were you imagining that you were Steve Trevor the whole time? Were you like, hey.
I mean, it was, it was
it was the fun one of the three. We'll say that.
Yeah.
So you have the fun one, the emotional, and the scary.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, that's literally what they are. I mean, it's just a big fight for the most part, and then like a lot of sexual tension before they relieve that tension.
Yeah. So Steve Trevor's on a mission. He's at Cobra. Becca shows up. He's like, I don't need any help. And she just kind of watches. And then they release Giganta, which is a giant machine. And Becca's like, you need any help? No. And eventually he admits it, and Becca helps him. And at the end, she's like, just basically starts to take him. He's like, here? Now? And there's like dead bodies, from the Cobra people around. She's like, yeah. He's like, am I going to need a safe word? Like, I just was like, oh man, it was good. It was very, in tune with Steve Trevor, which, is interesting that it still lines up Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman, even though it's not Diana. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I like that about it. That it's still Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor, because in this movie, the Justice League has a somewhat working relationship with the government.
Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah, somewhat. So, excuse me. I apologize.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm there with you. We are parents of children.
And I just got my two into their first day this morning.
Hey, Sayla's first day was today. Solomon's started on Tuesday. It's weird. They staggered kindergarten. Anyways. We digress because we're tired dads. That's what we do.
I mean, I don't have a whole lot more to say. I mean, it was kind of cool that they brought in a Wonder Woman villain in Giganta, but it just being a robot.
It was a reimagining,
Yeah, I mean, which everything is in these.
And I think that's what feels fresh about this universe is certain characters are different. They're not like, this is the evil, bad version. But it's not, I don't know. We'll get more into it as we get into the story. So the second one, and this is the order I watched them in, was Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman. The Superman one. It starts off where something crazy is going on. And we learn that Brainiac's attacking. And we have Dr. Sivana talking to President Amanda Waller. We learn that Brainiac was created by them to stop Superman, but now he's free and they can't stop Brainiac, so they need Superman to stop Brainiac. And they decide that they can't get a hold of him. They're going to put a nuke downtown. So they do that, and then Superman shows up on the bomber and basically shakes his head and tells the bomber, no. Superman
says, give me 5 minutes. Writes, give me 5 minutes on the window.
And he goes flying in, and he has a hard time getting to the Red Dome, and then he gets into the Red Dome, and there's Brainiac, but there's a twist. What's the twist, James?
Brainiac is like a child.
He's a scared child crying because he can't stop. He doesn't know what's going on. He can't control his powers. He's missing an arm. And he's just freaking out. And it's, Superman's like, you have to stop this, calm down. And he's like, I can't. And then he tells Superman, you have to make it stop. And he's like, I can make it stop. And he looks at him and just says, do it. And we just see Superman get down to him in his face, and his eyes go red, and then it cuts to a round, and the dome falls, and you just see Superman standing there.
Yeah, Superman kneeling in a wide shot, holding the Brainiac child. That one's pretty sad.
Yeah. And then the last one, which is dubbed Twisted, is the Batman.
Is exactly that. Is Twisted.
It's basically Batman going after Harley Quinn. It's the dark Harley Quinn, where he finds a fridge full of body parts. And as he investigates, we see more like axes and stuff on the walls. He finds a dead family that are posed like in pictures, like that 1950s perfect family. And then he finds Jack in the Boxes that are made with real people, with one person still alive. And that's when Harley shows up and starts fighting him with a chainsaw. And Harley gets cut, and then basically tells Batman to take her in, take her to the police. She's under arrest. And then what happens, James?
Batman bites her.
He fangs out and bites her.
Yeah, he bites her, drinks her blood.
Blood splatter on the wall. And I think this would be like really cool if you had no idea what Gods and Monsters was going to be, and you watch these three, like, I think Batman would be like, what the like,
well, yeah, I mean, it's super dark. I mean, it's just Harley Quinn, you know. It's not there's no Joker in sight in this one. And she's just got bodies taxidermied with smiles, positioned. She's got halves of people used as Jack in the Boxes. I mean, she's like a super twisted, like, doll maker type. And, yeah, it's just, yeah. And then it's an intense short, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the last one really grips you in the feels. And then, like, it's sad that he's got to do what he's got to do. And then you go to this one, and it's fast paced. It's dark and twisted, and yeah, in the end, she gets drained.
Yes, she does. So that's our setup. And now it's time for the film. So we start on Krypton, just like all Superman films and movies do. And Jor-El, this Krypton very John Byrne, because they're about to send the pod with their not conceived child, where Jor-El just has to input his genetic material. And Lara and Jor-El are there, but lo and behold, Zod shows up and shoots Jor-El.
Blows his hand off.
Yeah, very Peter Weller.
Uh-huh.
And then Zod inputs his genetic makeup into it. And there's some cool dialogue about the data that Jor-El provided, Zod not believing the data. You know, a little backstory about how Krypton was destroyed, what they did, and then the ship is launched. And then we cut to basically what would be the modern time. I'm going back to my notes here. Now, I will say we have Benjamin Bratt as Superman. And we have Michael C. Hall as Batman, which was awesome. I loved his voice as this Batman, as Kurt. Mm-hmm. And Tamara, I can't remember my handwriting. Dang it, Tyler. As Becca. Which So that kind of gives our voice cast. So we cut that the ship lands.
There's a while we're on it, I mean, there's a whole host, like there's a whole bunch of people in this cast.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
Tamara Taylor, Paget Brewster is Lois Lane, Jason Isaacs is Lex Luthor,
C.
Thomas Howell is Will Magnus.
With both of them, C. Thomas Howell and Jason Isaacs, later going on to appear as other characters in DC animated films.
Kari Payton is in it, as well as Carl Lumley.
Yeah.
So we got some DC animation royalty there.
Well, we have Yuri Lowenthal as Jor-El/Jimmy Olsen. He would be Superman or Clark or Superboy on Legion of Superheroes. Josh Keaton as Orion, who is, voice of Robin. And he also voiced the Flash in Justice League of Two Earths and other things for DC. Can never pronounce the dude's name who voiced Steve Trevor. He's also voiced, I think he voiced Steve Trevor on another thing. We have Carrie Walgreen as Karen Beecher / Livewire, who would later go on to be Wonder Woman for Justice League Action, if I'm not mistaken. But she definitely does the voice of Zatanna for DC Superhero Girls.
Yeah, that guy, he was on Smallville. He was in Man of Steel.
Yep, I just can never pronounce his first name. Battlestar Galactica. And then, of course, we have the wonderful Grey Griffin as Tina / Platinum. So that's pretty cool, too. She did, too. So a lot of great voice talent in this film. Now, so the ship carrying Superman, because he's never given an alternate name, is found by Spanish migrant farmers. And Lex Luthor is present, at the crash site, and they recover his ship. And he's a young Lex, but he's still, I'd say he's in his 20s. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, I would probably say in his 20s. I mean, because the time this happens, I mean, it's a lifetime ago, and he would be like, as Lex Luthor is smart, ambitious, he would have gotten to a place of power, even a government place of power, at a young age.
Yeah. So we have that sets the stage, and then we cut to like modern time, and that's all we get of like the migrant farmers. Lex knows that something came with the ship because of the fluid. The farmers are hiding the baby as they sneak out. It's very, very awesome of them.
I mean, it pushes even farther through the idea of Superman being an immigrant. I mean, the ultimate immigrant, an alien from another planet, and he's being raised by migrant workers
who are probably, illegal. We don't know for sure, so I'm not going to assume anything, but it's kind of the feeling you get, but we don't really dive too much into his past, other than later he delivers a line about being raised by migrant farmers. And then we're at the modern day, and there's a raid with Steve Trevor, and the Justice League comes in to help, and they just start killing people. They don't care. If they're bad guys, they kill. And I was like, dang. I was like, and then I thought, this is pretty much the anti-hero Justice League. Because they're not the villains. They're not like the crime syndicate. They're not evil. They're more anti-hero-ish. Because they're still good characters. They're still good people. They're just rough.
Yeah. I mean, in their position of power, is it necessary that they kill people? They could probably subdue everybody. I mean, it's honestly, in this respect, it's not Batman, a mortal Batman going up against armed people, and stuff's going to happen.
Yeah.
People are going to get caught in the crossfire, that type of stuff. But all three of these beings are incredibly superpowered. There's not a whole lot, especially just people with guns, that is a threat to them.
And so let's take a beat here. Batman looks very much like, he reminds me a little bit more of like the Batman Beyond style. Like the sleek look, no cape, single. And he's Man-Bat, Kurt Langstrom, but he's like Michael Morbius style Man-Bat.
I was like, I love how Man-Bat's Batman.
Yeah.
But he's still more Bat than Batman ever was.
The living vampire Batman, Man-Bat.
Batman.
Mm-hmm. Batman Bat. And we get his story where a little bit later when he goes to investigate, because what we see next is the Justice League is sitting in the Tower of Justice while there's debates going on at the Capitol Hill. And Silas Stone shows up because Superman has a request for Silas Stone to come do something with him, to work for him and help him with something. Then we see it reminded me of the Justice League animated series, The Secret Wars, or not, The Secret Origins episode with like the white Martian, not Martian looking shape-shifting thingies.
Yeah.
But it's this big alien looking creature that attacks this scientist in the Arctic. And we learn that the scientist is who, James?
Victor Freeze.
Victor Freeze, who's just a normal dude, okay? He's not Mr. Freeze. He's just a normal homeboy out there doing his science
He's a
thing.
Doctor.
Yeah, but he's not in some sort of cryogenic, massive, I'm going to shoot you, Arnold style voice. But, anyways,
one thing that I was thinking about when we were talking about Superman, and I always pictured that scene with Lex and the crash ship. I always pictured that scene as like New Mexico, like a Roswell scene.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I thought about that too, that because we don't actually know the time frame of this, nothing is given to really date it, and the way that things are, it very well could be the incident that would later be known as Roswell.
Yeah.
In this world. Very, very astute, Mr. Cole. Very, very wise.
But yeah, Victor Freeze is killed in the Arctic by some sort of machine type thing that fangs him, that bites his neck.
I haven't had my Zoa today. I'm feeling it. I'm not feeling the Aster.
Oh, you have to feel the Aster.
I know. Not feeling them. I'm not whelmed, man. Not staying whelmed.
You're underwhelmed.
And then we have people, these two guys talking, and they have super tiny horses. And they talk about miniaturizing. And we find out it's Ray Palmer and Ryan Choi. And they get attacked and both die. Are we seeing a pattern, James?
Well, definitely Ray Palmer. I mean, But yes, we are seeing a pattern. We've got smart people from the DC universe being killed by these robot-looking things, and very clearly trying to make the killings look as though the Justice League are killing these scientists.
And the next scene, Kurt is in his lab, and he's on the phone talking to Tina and Will Magnus, and they're kind of he's talking about what's going on, and he's starting to put pieces together. And then we cut to Silas and Victor Stone, and they are attacked, and it's made to look like it's Superman that attacked them and killed them. The first one was made to look like Batman. The second was made to look like Wonder Woman. This is made to look like Superman. And the part that got me is when Superman actually goes to investigate. He runs into Miss Lane, and Lois is pretty cool in this, I will admit. And he x-rays it, and he sees the dead bodies of Silas and Victor. And Silas is trying to basically protect his son over top of him. He just sees their two skeletons together. That got me a little choked up, not gonna lie.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's a
sad moment, you know.
And that's when, Kurt is like, we're being framed. And this is when we get the Luther's boys, as we learned that Luther, was at college. We don't know what college. I don't think they said.
I wrote Professor Luther.
Hey, that'd be pretty cool, man. Like, I would love to see more of this world explored, honestly. Because Luther's not a bad guy in this, honestly.
Yeah.
And Luther's boys was a bunch of scientists. And what do you call it? They got their picture taken at graduation, and Kurt was one of them. And it was interesting because we have the flashback of how Kurt and Will were trying to figure out that, Kurt did they flat out say he had like cancer?
So I was trying to listen to see, I don't think they ever specified like what he had. I don't know if it was a blood disorder or if it was some sort of cancer. But he just knew he was dying, and they kind of knew he was sick. But I think he held it away from them how bad it was. And yeah, they had the Will was working on his nanotech, building a ship in a bottle, like replicating itself, building a ship in a bottle, which is really funny because before the whole pass out sequence, they go off to a party and they convince Kirk to come with them. And Will's like, this is the first time I caught it, at least that I recall. Will's like, come on, Crazy Ivy's going to be there with her homegrown.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, we got an Ivy reference.
Yep.
And then basically Kurt and Will try to figure out nanites on a biological level. And of course, they tested on mice, and then Kurt tested on himself, and it turns him into a vampire. Scientists just never should test stuff on themselves. There's plenty of poor people who are willing to be paid, $5 or whatever to be tested on. Okay.
Yeah. Well, if he, as he stated, he's like, if I don't test it on myself now, or like if I go back to the hospital, he's like, I might not get this chance again.
And what happens? Vampire.
Yeah. One rat lived and 4 died, but that's good enough. Let's test it on ourselves. So we go back to the like current timeline, and Superman goes to goes to talk with Lois Lane. He's anticipating the dogs destroying stuff or just trampling through the house.
Yeah, that's the dogs. Well, I'm trying to record to be all podcasty.
Yeah. Superman goes to get Lois Lane. He's fully aware of the frame job going on them. She says this is like spin tactics, like trying to take their focus away from the frame job. He shows her the Justice Tower, the kryptonite generator powering the place, the shield tech that it provides for the building. He shows her his ship, which he said the government used to have, but he convinced them to give it back because it didn't belong to them. He shows her some garbled files that he's been able to access. He thinks a lot of the files are destroyed and everything on the ship. And he says, "This is my father," and he has an idyllic view of his father, of who Jor-El, or who his father ought to have been, being Jor-El. Like the idealist belief that he has of his father is what Jor-El was like, what Jor-El was about, not Zod.
Yeah, he thinks, like he says, I often think that he tried to save everybody, but only could save me.
Yeah.
And I think the interesting thing about this Superman and looking at his characters, I think, his viciousness, you could say, comes from Zod, but it's also a big play on what Lara brings. I mean, there's so much. It's all about Jor-El's influence on his son, father and son, and Superman and Lois a little bit more using Lara, but there's not a whole lot about where Superman comes from on his mother's side, like what he gets from her.
Yeah, that's what I have liked. We discussed liking that about the second season of Superman and Lois.
So I really like that, and
so Batman investigates Silas Stone's office, where he finds some information about Project Fair Play,
which I think is awesomely named when we learn that it's basically, spoiler alert, it's a weapon created to take out Superman. So it's fair.
Right. And it's interesting, we see Project Fair Play, and we just see some more people. So some people that I saw in the little meeting that everybody who was involved, it's all like the smartest people in the DC universe. And a few of them there that I picked out was Savannah. Holt was there, who's Mr. Terrific. John Henry Irons was there.
Pat Dugan.
Yep. Pat Dugan was there.
So there was
another 7 or 8 people there, but they didn't name all of them. So it's literally on you to pick out some of them.
Karen Beecher.
Yep. They name her. They name Savannah. They name Holt. I picked out Jeremy Irons. He wasn't in that scene.
Jeremy Irons wasn't in this?
Well, with the all-star cast, I mean, he damn well could have been. John Henry Irons, I picked him out in the scene. He only has like a single line, I think, and you can with the way he talks, the character, the build, the earring that it was drawn with from the time, Like it was definitely John Henry Irons. But then that whole meeting gets interrupted. Kirk
Yeah.
is eavesdropping on the meeting because he's come to visit Will.
He's smart to be there to, to protect his friend, and he starts fighting the thing, and then Becca and Superman show up, but Becca's sword has a built-in boom tube, and that's pretty awesome that she can boom tube through the sword.
Yeah, so I'm not sure when that moment happens because like my notes are kind of like shorthand in different areas.
Are your notes like mine where you think you're taking like some BA, like detailed notes, then you're looking at them like, what does that line mean, Tyler?
I mean, there's a lot of detail here, and I know what all of it is, but as to specifically where, like, so you talk about her sword, so I'm going to talk about the flashback, her origin.
Yeah, go for it.
And I just can't place where that would be in the movie.
It was after this scene.
It
was just after
from my notes.
Yeah, it was after this scene because Trevor makes a line to her, and she gets mad. Like, I told you that in a moment of weakness. And
oh yeah, that was. So I mean, this scene, like, almost everybody dies. The only survivor is Will. Tina dies, and then everybody else.
He even gets burned, doesn't he?
Yeah,
like
he's like, yeah, he's in a coma. After this,
I will say that this one I had to double check because it felt like to me it should have been rated R. And
it could have been.
It's PG-13 because I double checked because it felt more rated R to me than some of the rated R animated films.
Well, that's just the rating system, the ratings board changing those types of things. But
it could be.
Yeah, so then they talk to her about going, like, so Wonder Woman goes to talk to Steve Trevor, and they kind of do a little training thing together, little sparring match, and he says that she's Superman's boyfriend, and she says she belongs to no one, and he said you did once, and then she like chucks him against the wall really hard.
I beats the shit out of him.
And then we get her
tough,
right? And then we get her origin story here. It goes back to Apocalypse, and Becca is betrothed to Orion.
This is the scariest scene of the entire thing.
As Highfather's granddaughter. This is what?
This is the scariest scene in the entire movie, and Jania had to point out to me why it was super scary. Because you see Darkseid smiling.
Yeah.
She's like, that's scary.
Well, that should definitely tell you, like, things aren't what they seem in this universe when it comes to that. At this point, it seems that they're having the marriage to bring the peace between Darkseid and New Genesis, or Darkseid, Apocalypse and New Genesis. Whereas in our normal story, that's where Orion and Scott Free were traded to bring about a truce between New Genesis and Apocalypse. And in this is where Orion gifts Becca the sword, made from one of the finest craftsmen on Apocalypse, and with the mother box built into the hilt so she can boom tube. And then the wedding happens, the wedding goes off, and then she tries to take Orion to run to get away as High Father and Light Ray and all the other new gods. I mean, what is it? Red Wedding? Kill the entire groom's family.
Yeah, and they kill them all. They kill Orion. Granny Goodness was doing the service, which was creepy as can be. First of all, just seeing Granny up there, like you said, if you're thinking about it, just them being happy is enough to scare the crap out of you.
Yeah. So, which is I think this scene is really cool. I think this origin scene was a lot better story than the short was for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, the short for Wonder Woman was cool, but yeah, this is the story that we needed. And then when we come back, let's see. So we've seen that Savannah and all the other scientists were killed, and then we meet Stephen Hawking's style Lex Luthor, and Superman meets Lex out in space.
Yeah, at the Watchtower satellite.
Yep, and he shows him the correct files of his origin that he did not realize.
Tells him who his father is, that his father is Zod, that Zod tried to take over the planet, or he did, but to fuel his war, he mined the planet's core, which destroyed the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And this is right before this part. I think Jamie was watching, and just before it came up, I think I was like, oh, and it just happened. I was like, yeah, that's Zod's son. That's Zod and Laura's son. She's like, he looks like a Zod.
And they never, like I said, I like that he never gets his Kryptonian name. We never get that.
So there is comics attached to this. There was a small, it's literally only like 8 or 9 issues or something, and they might have been like digital, so they're probably like short and quick, those quick reads. But it must have come from there because, and it's not in the movie, but it must have come from there because his Kryptonian name is Lorzod.
Oh. Yeah, that kind of works, I guess. Whatever. So, it can be what it needs to be.
Well, now I just wish that I would have read those before we did this, so I had just a little bit more input. A little more information. They're on DC Universe.
Yeah, we might do that later. Come back and
do a
and
follow-up.
Yeah, just throw them into our regular rotation. So Superman now has a little bit better understanding of what's going on, and then what do you call it? Luthor's ship blows up right after Superman leaves, so it looks like Superman blew up Lex's ship, and we find out where the Justice League had Will Magnus, the only survivor of the attack, as basically their one witness that they didn't do it. He wakes up and it's all burned up, but then basically we find out that Will Magnus is the villain. Were you surprised, James?
No.
And all the people that were doing the killings were versions of the Metal Men. And we find out that one, Will's a douche. He's the one that turned Kirk into a vampire because his girlfriend liked Kirk more than Will. Some sort of weird, sick love triangle. It's 2, Will accidentally killed Tina years ago on accident because all Tina ever talked about was Will trying to find a cure for Kirk. And 3, he did find a cure because Will used it on himself to heal his burns and everything to make himself look perfectly fine. And poor Kurt was just devastated. It was his best friend. And the Metal Men, what the heck? They finally serve a purpose, but what the heck?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the incorporation of the Metal Men was kind of cool, you know. I mean, they had Tin, he was a robot. Tina was Platinum.
And Jania asked the weirdest question about Platinum. Why does Platinum have nipples?
Well, you know, I mean, Will still needed to get down.
I guess. I kind of, I was like, because I was like, I looked at Jania like, I seriously don't know. I was like, I can't justify anything with that one. I'm like, I don't know.
But I mean, the only thing that kind of really I would have liked to see a little more of, or like more of an explanation of who the other Metal Men were.
Gold,
you know,
wasn't it Gold? Gold was the vampire. Platinum.
Then what? Bronze would
Yeah.
was Wonder Woman, and then like Iron was Superman.
Yeah, I think so. Because we met Platinum and 10 for sure. I know Gold was the Batman. Let's see here. Gold, Platinum, Mercury, Iron, 10, and Lead. So Gold, Platinum would have been what Superman was. Mercury, Iron, 10, and Lead. I guess, yeah. There was 3 evil ones, 2 good ones. Are we missing one?
So, I mean, I would have just enjoyed a little bit more. They were there. They were like the Metal Men, but
yeah, it was cool. It was a nice
but
twist.
You know, this was at the time when these movies were still like 75, 78 minutes long. You know, they didn't crack 80 at this time. So, you know, I understand why there's that limited bit there. I mean, we already said they wrote in a whole bunch of DC characters in this universe just to be supporting characters throughout the story.
Yeah, but Kurt eventually stops and kills Will. And it's pretty intense. While Superman's outside trying to stop the military, is getting shot with Project Fairplay, which is red solar energy guns. And Becca joins him while Kurt tries to stop Will, and they do so. And
they only do so after Lex shows up and says that tells Steve Trevor to stop being an idiot and to help the Justice League because Will Magnus is the one trying to control everybody's minds.
Yeah, because that's part of Will's plan. He's going to control he needed the power from. Gotta love these master plans. He needed the power from Superman's ship to launch his bomb that was going to send basically nanite bots into the atmosphere in the world, and he can control everyone and have everyone a collective thought. And Stephen Hawking's / Lex Luthor, Lex Hawkins shows up and basically helps them, and they stop Magnus. And you know, at the end of the movie, we are, you know, Superman and Batman, they're turning a new leaf. Like, they're not going to kill anymore. They want to actually inspire and be more heroic. And that's part of their journey and their arc that I like in this film. But Becca, with Metron looking Lex Hawkins, decides they're going back to Apocalypse and New Genesis. And she's ignored her duties for too long. She is technically wouldn't be considered the ruler of Apocalypse. She
did marry into the family.
She did marry Orion, who was the Prince of Apocalypse. Basically. So they're going to go back, and that's where we end the film. Superman is going to be a better and him, and they kind of hint at finding more people. So I would have liked a sequel to this.
Well, the thing I like about Superman is he finds out in this, at this time, who his father was. Like he had this idyllic image, and then he finds out who his father was. That his father was responsible for the death of his people. And it doesn't it's not this hindering thing. He's like, am I like my father? You know what I mean? Am I going to destroy everybody? Like, he was raised and he rises right above it.
Mm-hmm.
The migrant farmers raised him to be, still have a good moral, a good moral center. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
exactly.
They kill, but they only kill bad guys. They don't, isn't
that why they got
just
Michael
cause
C. Hall
collateral
to voice Batman?
Yeah, this just to cause collateral damage and to be like the crime syndicate and, kill anybody who gets in their way.
So, yeah, it was a very cool, interesting concept that I hate that it didn't go any farther. Because I really think we could be talking about... and I looked up the comic series. It's 3 issues of Wonder Woman, 3 issues of Superman, 3 issues of Batman, and 9 issues. It says the Justice League. So, yeah.
All right. So, got a little bit of stuff to dig into there.
If I had thought about there was comics to them, I would have read those for this review.
I didn't even think about it until today, and then by then it was too late.
Couldn't even message me like, hey, Tyler, if you're not busy, or if you're like just sitting around doing nothing, or you're doing something, you should stop and read these comics. But hey,
I was working all day.
Thinking back to our rankings, I think we both put this at like a 7 or an 8. Or, no, sorry. It's a 7 on IMDb. I rated it at 8 on IMDb. And I don't have it in front of me what we put it in our tier list, but I don't know. I might argue to put this a little higher. There's more to it than...
Yeah, like a 5-star rating, I give this a solid, 3.5 stars. Easy.
I think I'd go 4.
It's a pot, yeah.
I find it just different enough, but same enough and perplexing that it makes me want more. And it's definitely something I think fans should check out because it is different than more so like, oh, this Bruce Wayne is this, because there is no Bruce Wayne, and there is no, oh, this happened differently here. It's a different concept, and I would kind of like to see what they would have done if they needed to expand more.
Yeah, I liked how they were. Yeah, and that would be an interesting thing as to who it would be, because it's different in this world. Superman is Zod and Laura's son, from a genetic chamber. It was Becca from New Genesis and Kirk Langstrom as a vampire,
very different.
Yeah.
Very different.
It would be very interesting to see more in this, because it's the idea that it's original, but in a way the same.
Which is original, that yet feels familiar.
Exactly. It's an original that feels familiar, I mean, in this day that, we've seen so much come across, like DC content, like the CW. At least 3 of the shows on the CW were completely like original concepts. Legends, the character on Batwoman, and that Gotham Knights show. I mean, more interested in... Yeah, exactly.
I know what you're talking about.
We're more interested in original concept, but, not using somebody from the comics to make an original take. It was just trying to create somebody out of thin air.
Well, that's because they can own the character rights more and get more control over using a new character than using a character that was created.
But aren't you still... yeah, I know. But aren't you still limited to the rights that the other characters that they must interact with? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like...
everybody wants to make the next, like, Harley Quinn. Where... that's why every writer comes on and tries to...
Even the next Harley Quinn, who is supposed to be Punchline, isn't the next Harley Quinn.
Yeah, Punchline went nowhere. But that's another story. All right, so let's get out of here. Gods and Monsters, check it out. HBO Max. It'll be worth your time, I promise.
Absolutely.
You should have already seen it. You should have already seen it if you listened to this whole episode. So, all right, James. Let's get some sleep, man. You're part vampire anyways.
Yeah, but I'm not very nocturnal.
No, you're not. He's the vampire that sleeps all night and all day.
I'm the day walker.
We're going to press pause and hear a few words from our other podcasts on Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read 1 book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, 1 book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough super talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, the Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, Caped Wonder, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope podcast.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
Look up in the sky. Yes, it's Miss Sailor.
We just want to say, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please check out other podcasts on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Remember to check out Krypton Report on all social media platforms. Go to linktree.com/Krypton Report. You find all of our information right there. $1 a month, you'll get extra special content that you don't get on the main show, like movie commentaries and whatever else comes out of our mouths. So check it out, patreon.com/Krypton Report.